Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Brilliant. And I've got Bastian Bergmann with me. He just came out with an amazing book that I want to dive into because what we're seeing is now a progression and a growth into the direction of what his book specifically talks about. It's called Press Play. So pick it up on Amazon or the bookstore. We got Bastian Bergmann. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks for having me, Tristan. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks for doing this, man. You're out of Luxembourg. Tell me
Mhm.
about that. Is that your hometown? Did you
It
move
is, yeah.
there? Mm.
We moved here with the family a little over 4 years ago. We were in Berlin before, been pretty much all over the place. It was middle of the pandemic, and we have two kids now, and our first daughter was 2.5 at that point, and we're just, I think, ready to get out of the big city and get to a place that's a little more serene and maybe better suited for children and a family. And my wife is originally from here, so we were looking at different places of where to go to, and then we defaulted to the most convenient option because grandparents are close, support system. So yeah, that's how
That's great.
we ended up here. It's 4 years. Yeah.
I love that. And in that process, is that when you started thinking about writing the book, or did you already have the idea from before?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I've been I've been writing since I was 13 years old. So writing per se has
Ooh,
always been
I
it's
like
always
that.
been a really big part of my life. And I know this might sound like pretty corny or pretty cheesy, when sometimes when people talk about what's been on my bucket list or it's been, my life dream, etc. But writing a book actually, my wife reminded me of this. She goes, more than 5 years ago, we did
Mhm.
this New Year's thing where we looked at where do we want to be and what our goals are for the next 5 years. And she's like, you had it on your list. You wanted to write a book before you turned 40 and you
Oh,
wanted to publish it. And it's like, it's actually happened now. So
that's
this,
cool.
writing per se, I wrote for like local newspapers, different magazines as a high school kid and as a teenager. I worked for radio stations. I've been writing like poetry, blogs, short stories, literally everything. And a book
Okay.
was always something that I really wanted to do. And I explored different topics throughout the years. It was a really interesting process because I started a few different manuscripts, I think like 3 or 4 before I actually wrote Press Play, but I never finished the manuscript. Like I never pushed them forward. And I think one of the
Mm,
big reasons was because the idea didn't feel natural to me, 100% natural. Like it didn't feel like I'm the voice or I'm like the person that's best suited to write this book and communicate this particular idea.
mhm.
And when you're right, actually, it was about the time when we moved that I started thinking about this particular book, and it all coincided with once we were here and we were settled, with a call that I had with the marketing leadership team at Danone, the Volvic and Evian waters groups, and it kind of just started progressing from there. But yep,
That's
it
cool.
was around that time.
I like that. So you had the idea that you wanted to write a book, but you didn't know about what until it came to you naturally. I like that.
Yeah.
That's what seems to happen when I ask that question from authors. Very cool. Very cool. All right. I really enjoyed your book for two primary reasons. One, I'm a gamer. Like I play Fortnite all the time.
Cool.
So so I really understood because I used to play Halo. I used to,
Yep.
we grew up in this world, right?
Yep.
So when you're talking about how these brands are putting themselves into different games, big games like Fortnite or
Mhm.
smaller handheld apps, right? I'm like, this makes so much sense. It just started. Your book gave me that clearer picture,
Mm. Thank you
and
for
that's
saying that.
that's reason number one. Reason number two is I currently help out companies in building out brands and building out communities specifically
Mhm. Mhm.
because I've built the largest real estate agent community in the world. And with
Very cool.
that, people come to us and be like, build us a community, right? What does that look like? So, in those things, I thought, man, like Bastian, you hit it right on the head. Like this is the future. And
Mhm.
I think the challenge that I see, and this is my question to you. The challenge I see is that people don't quite understand
Yep.
that it's this participation that allows for the connection, right?
Yep.
How do we break through that? Because a lot of companies won't ever get it. How do we
Mm-hmm.
break through it?
You nailed it. I mean, first of all, you nailed it. And there's a few things there. I think one, I just want to comment quickly on the participation element, because one of the questions that I get a lot, when people talk about, well, what makes gaming so powerful, and why are they so immersive, and why do people engage so much in those environments, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of different reasons, but fundamentally, at the very core of it is the idea of play. There's nothing more that's more fundamentally human than to play. If you've ever watched a toddler grow up and learn about the world, they're learning through play and unstructured play. And there's a lot of we could go off a complete tangent here, but in a nutshell, games and video games are a digital manifestation of the concept of play. Like, they connect in us in very human, very biological, evolutionary ways of how our brains are wired and what makes us uniquely the species that we are. So there's that. Then the second component is one of the questions that I get all the time from people when we talk about this stuff. Executives will say to me, well, social media is immersive for people. They spend a lot of time there. And when I'm on Instagram in the evening, I'm on my couch and I'm doing this the whole time. Like,
Mhm.
you're scrolling and I'm doom scrolling. I'm
Yep.
pretty immersed in Instagram. I'm like, well, that's not the same, because here's the big difference. And this gets to your question, Tristan, or to the point that you made. Social media specifically is a one directional activity, just like watching TV, watching a movie. You don't have to act, you don't have to participate for things to happen. You're just consuming. It's a one directional activity. Gaming is a bi-directional activity. It doesn't work if you're not participating. There's action and reaction, which creates, it's that loop, that perpetual loop, which is inducive of flow states, which then leads to immersion, deeper engagement, deeper connection. And that's the state of play that opens up, all these possibilities for, we're more receptive for new ideas. We learn better. We, yes, we release dopamine, but we also release oxytocin if it's actually really
Mm.
intrinsically motivating experiences, which is the bonding chemical, which also makes us more receptive and more open to, forming relationships, maintaining the relationships that we have. So you nailed it dead on the head. It's
Well, they're your
games.
words. I read your book. This is your idea. I'm
Yeah,
just regurgitating it to you.
thank you. But you summarized it really, really well, the essence of it. So that's really at the core of it. And I think to your question on how do we break through that, because a lot of organizations, a lot of brands, they still don't get it. It feels like either
Yeah.
they're hesitant, they're scared, or they don't quite understand it, which is a big part of the reason why I wrote this book, because I walked away from that conversation with the team at Danone thinking, wait a minute, this is an incredible company. These are really smart people. They've been in their jobs for forever. They know what
Yeah.
they're doing. If Danone is struggling with this, who else is struggling with this? Who else needs help?
Everyone.
Everyone, exactly. And I think if I had to pick one reason that I think is holding brand leaders, CMOs, executives back from really seeing the opportunity that lies within gaming for their brands and for their organizations, it's the stereotypes. Because they have
Mm.
this idea of
Yeah.
a gamer, and they go, well, I'm not a gamer. Like, that's something that you get all the time. Well, I'm not a gamer. And I said, well, show me your phone. And they go, I'm like, what's this?
Oh.
What's that? That's Wordle. I'm like, that's a
That's
game,
a game.
mobile game. So, just how you said, like, you considered yourself a gamer just a few minutes ago, and like, you play Fortnite, you play Halo, which is that's the triple A gaming world, console, PC, which historically is more associated with the term of a gamer.
Yeah.
The reality is almost 3.5 billion people on earth play video games
It's
almost
crazy.
daily. And that's the point. It doesn't have to be in front of a PC. It doesn't have to be a console. It's my wife plays Wordle Strands in 2048. Like, those are mobile games. They're video games, and they're just as effective for her as a person, as a consumer, as maybe Fortnite or Halo is engaging and immersive for you. So it's
Mm.
different flavors for different people. It's different experiences, different games for different people. But what unites them all is the concept of play. And at the end of the day, they're all video games, regardless of the platform that they're running on. And gaming is the only consumer medium that effectively cuts across all demographic consumer cohorts. It's the only one. And I think it's that when brands have to break with that stereotype. It's not the 18-year-old dude in the basement with neon lights playing a shooter game, slinging Monster Energy drinks. Like, but
Oh, it's
that's
so funny.
literally the visual that comes to mind for people, you know?
Yeah, it's the
It's
mod. It's the typical
that's it.
mod.
That's it. And, you know, don't get me wrong, like these people absolutely exist. They are a part of the overall gaming world. They
Yeah.
absolutely exist. But it's not an accurate representation of the entire population that plays video gaming. I think it starts with that. That's the biggest hurdle at the moment.
Yeah, I could totally see that, man. It's that stereotype because we
Mhm.
all have it,
Yep.
right? Very, very interesting. All right, so I thought so many different things when I was reading your book because I I know that it's uncharted territory for a lot of
Mhm.
companies. And as I started going further into your book, I started thinking like, what can we do
Mhm.
in the real estate world? Now I'm thinking like, wait a second, and I'm talking about like the bigger companies in the US. Like, what
Mhm.
can Zillow do? What
Mhm.
can these massive companies that
Yeah.
have really never tapped into the gaming side,
Mhm.
like they could really make some big damage. Like they think they're doing well now.
Yep.
You really made me see bigger. How's that? I'm
Thank
like,
thank you.
dude, because the only person that really pushes gaming and the companies should figure out how to go into the gaming world besides your book was Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, gaming is untapped, gaming's amazing. I'm like, really, really? And then your book just put it all together. I'm like, damn it. So now, where do you think for, let's say, for a company that's doing well, the
Mhm.
average company that you see out there that has a good name brand, where do you think what do you think the next step for a company like that would be? Because my next question is going to be, well, what do you think about the everyday mom and pop store, right? But first,
Yeah.
let's go for the big ones. What
Yeah.
is their opportunity? How do they get
Yeah.
into this?
Great question. I think, in the book I lay out 4 distinct strategies. So I really boiled it down and really wanted to make it simple and accessible for everyone. So it boils down to 4 distinct strategic approaches. The first one is you can integrate your brand, and there's different ways of doing that with a video game that already exists. So, back to your Fortnite example, if I was Zillow or maybe Roblox, a lot of brands are going into Roblox right now. And if I was Zillow, why not have a plot of land, and you build different buildings, different real estate opportunities, and you let people build, tear down, rent, sell, basically
That's
like
so
real
fun.
estate simulation, an actual game, but on Roblox. And this is like a very obvious example, obviously, but
That's an easy one too. Good
that's an
one.
easy one. But the point is you're integrating in a gaming environment that already exists, whether it's through that or honestly like very simple product placement. That's typically where people tend to start. You're missing a lot of the actual opportunity, but that's an easy entry point. The second one would be you're building your own games, whether that's with a partner or yourself. There's different pros and cons to that, but you're actually creating a world, a gaming touch point that hasn't existed before. The big benefit of that is, and even if you compare it to, let's say, social media and being on social media, with a game that you build, you get to shape the touch point 100% to how you want what you want it to look like, and then
Mm,
engage your target audience through it. When you're on social media, you're beholden to what Instagram and what Meta and what the companies give you. Like the news feed is the feed is the feed.
yeah.
That's it. You don't get to like shape that. You're plugging into an experience that's being given to you. So build your own game. The third one would be either the first one, existing, integrating with one that exists, or building your own, but leveraging underlying blockchain technology. So
Ooh, yeah.
the reason for blockchain here is it opens up new revenue opportunities, because now you can give ownership over what the items you might be selling in the game. You could let people trade it afterwards. So there could be an aftermarket place that you could track. And what's cool about that is it gives you as a brand continuous exposure to your consumers. So it's not a one and done thing, but now you're starting to create an economy and a marketplace where you have constant direct exposure to the consumers. And then the fourth one is, and this is especially relevant for, for companies that have like existing products or services, and you're actually selling that. Like Peloton is a really good example in the book. The Peloton bike, the treadmill, the rower, all those examples.
Yeah.
They made a video game for the Peloton bike, and it's workout content. So now when you're riding your bike, your workout is being done in a video game. So it simulates how you're biking, how fast you're going. It simulates your workout, but it's not instructor-led content or workout where the person's yelling at you to go faster. It's you're actually simulating a video game. So it's basically make the game your product or a part of your product to like enhance your services. You could call it, sometimes people refer to it as gamification. It goes, I think it takes it actually further than that, rather than just latching onto like in a single mechanic or a feature from a game and you plug it into your website. Someone makes a transaction, like they buy their home on Zillow, and then Zillow has like confetti on the screen. That would be quote unquote gamification, but copy pasting stuff is not actual gamification. But those would be the four strategies. And I think regardless of where companies start or where they already are or what they want to do, the first step really is two components. It's about deeply investing in the understanding of your audience. Who are you actually trying to reach, and who are you really making this for?
Mm.
And the important part there is you have to go beyond demographic data. There's still too many companies and brands out there who think of their consumers as, well, this is for 40 to 50-year-old women in the southern states of the of the US, which is like saying they eat the same food, they like the same drinks, they all like the same color, and they wear the same dress, which is obviously not true.
Yeah.
So really figuring out what are people's actual motivations, what are their innate needs, drivers, desires, so that you could really understand whatever we're building, how's it going to resonate with the audience? How am I going to break through so I can give them something that's actually valuable and engaging? And then the second piece to that, and those two pieces then add up to, the baseline that's really fundamental. But the second piece is you as a brand have to do a lot of soul searching. Who are you as a brand? What do you stand for? And what are your brand values? You have to be so clear on those. And then the step after that is how do you align your brand values with the needs of the audience and the values of the audience that you're trying to reach? Those have to align, because what that creates is authenticity. It creates authentic experiences. And that's the baseline that gives you a chance at succeeding in gaming, and honestly anywhere, but in gaming specifically, because if you show up in these environments and you're trying to be something that you're not, and it's inauthentic, it's going to feel weird. People are going to reject it right away. And again, when people are in a state of play, just like how they're a lot more receptive to everything that you're sending them,
Mm-hmm.
they're also going to call bullshit very
Yeah.
quickly, because when they're enjoying this experience, when they're playing, it's also kind of, they're a little bit, your mind's a little bit vulnerable.
It
So
is.
anything that goes against that goes against the grain, that could potentially ruin your experience, the expulsion factor is going to be like 10 times harder or 10
Yeah.
times stronger. So
Right.
authenticity is really, really important.
What company comes to mind when you're thinking they do it well?
Mm. Yeah, it's really, really good question. I think if I had to pick just one, I'll give you two examples because they're in different industries.
Okay.
One, the New York Times does it really, really well, because the way they've built out their New York Times games portfolio in their subscription, they've intentionally started with crosswords because that was connected to the legacy and the heritage and the DNA of what the New York Times has always been, and who
Yep.
they are. And they're not going out and saying, well, we're going to do a bunch of sports games now, because yes, we have the athletic in our portfolio, but we're not going to do like FIFA sponsoring or God knows what.
No, it doesn't
They
fit.
leaned into, yeah, it's their mission as a games team is they're going to become the premier destination for premier puzzle games, word games, puzzle games, problem solving. That's what the New York Times stands for. And they're leaning into that so heavily, and that creates authenticity. So they do it really well. Another company is Adidas. honestly, across all the
Really?
different efforts that they've done, because they're very, I mean, think about what made Adidas or Adidas, however you want to pronounce it. There's different
Adidas.
ways.
Yeah, that's what I
Adidas, different.
listen, I realized that we were pronouncing it wrong as Americans, okay? So
Yeah, it does. I can go either way. To me, it doesn't matter. But I mean, they were big, or they became known, especially in the US in the 1980s when Run DMC started wearing the sneakers. That's where they came from.
mm,
So Adidas has always had a very strong connection to culture and like street culture and subculture, and that's what they have been over the last 3-4 years really leaning into again, is the subculture and the culture of gaming, and really understanding that they were one of the first ones to really lean into NFTs in that space. So yeah, I think the New York Times as
mm.
like a very traditional example, and Adidas one that's a little more on the cutting edge side.
Interesting. I like the differentiation. Okay. So now let's let's niche it down. Like the small bakery,
Hmm.
the little coffee shop in
Hmm.
your hometown or in my area. How do we take advantage of this?
Yeah, I think obviously when you now go as a you're one shop, you're a small bakery in a store, you're not a chain. It's company of one. It's a business of one or maybe a couple people
Yeah.
going out and saying, well, we're going to build a video game on our own. It's probably too expensive, too big of a lift, et cetera, et cetera. So I think how do you take advantage of that is you look at what makes games so effective, and how do they connect to people. So all the principles around quote unquote gamification, but the loop of games where there's a task, there's an activity, there's a reward, and you're being given the next task. And there's an action that you have to take, and you get feedback as a player, as a person, as a customer. And then there's a reward again if you do it, and so on and so forth. So one of the simplest manifestations of that, how in at least they do it over here. I think they do it, where you guys are probably quite a bit too. When you go to your local coffee shop and some of them will have the stamps.
Yes.
If you get 10 coffee, you get a stamp, and if you get 10, you get a coffee for free.
Yeah.
That's a very, very, very simple, bare bones example of exactly what we just described. Because it's effectively you're
Hmm.
trying to create a loop with that consumer, because you go,
Yeah.
what's the action? You purchased your coffee. You get a reward, you get the stamp. What's my next action? What's my incentive? Well, I've got 1 out of 10. I got to get the second one because I want to get to that ultimate reward, which is my free coffee. So it's obviously a very simple example, but I think what I love about this is that's how you can boil down the thinking of how do I how do I use these principles to give my customers a better experience and help them come back to my specific store, so that it's more than just the transaction of I bought my bread and I'm out of here. Like there's a stronger
Mm.
connection to what you're offering them experientially. These coupon cards are a really simple example. So I'm not suggesting everyone should do coupon cards, but it's that type of thinking of,
No, but you got me thinking now. I don't own a coffee shop, but if I'm in a coffee shop and I have this little stamp, this
mhm,
little card to stamp things, you gave me an idea, like, what if you give them, like, a bigger stamp and every week you change up different things inside the coffee shop and they have to find
mhm.
those things while they're in line. When they get there,
Yep.
they get 15% off. It's
Yep.
like, you're hooking
That's
me.
exactly it. It's
Yeah.
something like what you just described is literally it's the physical equivalent of, in gaming, what you would call a hidden object game. Where you're in that game, maybe it's a mobile game, and literally the task in that game is there's maybe a timer, there's a countdown, and it's like, well, there's 3 hidden items here. Did you find all 3? Because only if you do before the timer's up, you get a booster or a power up, you get to the next level. And I think that's the equivalent, of what you just said. You walk into the store. Well, what's your timer? Your timer is the line that you're in. Because when you're at the counter and you haven't found the 2 hidden items, you don't get your discount.
Funny. That
So
is very funny.
it's exactly
Dude,
that. It's a
you
very
made me
great
you made me
example.
think about a hidden object game inside of houses on when you're searching for property. It's interesting. I'm
Mm.
like, interesting. So listen, your book gave me so many ideas. I was like, this is crazy. My brain was going left and right. I have notes. I'm like, so good, so good. Thank you for writing it, by the way.
Thank you.
It was really good. All right, so when you're a small company like that, what are you looking for? Are you looking for things that will bring people in through gamifying the process? Because we tend to talk to all different types of sizes of companies,
Mm,
but the ones that come up to me and ask questions they're small, right?
mhm.
So if we're trying to gamify it, how would you say we bridge that gap where they don't have money, like you said,
Yep.
to create their own game? They may not even have enough money to what was it, integration, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, where do they fit into that world? Does it remain in a more analog world where they have the little paper or something like that? Or what do you think?
Yeah. It's a really good question. I think if you're really like just a store of one and you're super, super, super limited in budget and what you can do, it's probably going to be predominantly in that physical world. However, I would look towards, well, what are some digital opportunities that are maybe closer in like in your local community? You could have it on your website. If you're doing a website, you could leverage
Mm,
these principles too, where because that's not
yeah,
expensive to set up. You could have a trivia on your website where people play a really simple mini game. It's like this week's mini game for, I don't know, Joe's Coffee.
I like
And it's
that.
like if you solve it this week, you get 15% off or something like that. And then what you could do too, you could have streaks. You could have there's like a monthly event that you're running. And for the people that win and solve the weekly puzzle or the weekly game that you're putting on, whether it's in
Mhm,
store or digital, because you can connect them too. You could run it in both places.
that's true.
And then for all the people that solve the weekly one, there's a bigger reward or something. Like not only you don't maybe not get a free coffee, but you could do something really cool where, hey, for on like the following Sunday, we're
Mhm.
bringing breakfast to your home for your family. Like that's your
Oh,
prize or
wow.
something like that. So
Yeah, I like
you,
that.
you could do a lot of different things there where you can go digital. So you widen it, you make it a little more accessible, but it doesn't have to be expensive. It could even be if you're doing stuff on Instagram, if that's like a channel that you're pushing as a small business owner, you could run those types of gamified events or quests or treasure hunts or stuff like that. You could do that with puzzles on Instagram too, where different posts are leading
Mm,
to a thing. And it's like the answer reveals itself over time. And whoever guesses first what the ultimate puzzle is, like they win a prize or something. So it's really about looking at what is your footprint and I think that's what you're actually bringing up with this question is a really important question that applies to the small guys as much as it does to the big guys, because at the end of the day, all these different activities and the same is true for a massive gaming integration. If you're going, we're going to pump 20 million into this thing, we're going to build a brand new world and all this great stuff, all these activities are a means to an end. Like gaming for the sake of gaming is going to get you nowhere. And that also shouldn't be the starting point. The starting point should be, what are my objectives as a business? What do I want? What do I want to achieve? What do we want to drive? Is it we need to get more new customers into our store, or the small bakery, or the big virtual store, physical store if we're
mhm.
Adidas, whatever? Is it we want to make sure that the customers that we have, they come back more frequently and they never go to a different bakery? Is it we want to expand potentially to a second town with our bakery, but we want to test the waters first to see if people would actually buy our stuff over the bread from the local bakeries? Whatever the business objectives are, be really clear what those are first, and then work backwards from, well, how do we best achieve those? What is the best way or the different ways for us to realize those goals and achieve those objectives? And as a part of that, then on figure out, does gaming or gamification or leveraging these principles in the physical world in whichever manifestation that ends up being, does that allow us to get to the outcome that we want to get to? And too many people, and this is even like, this may be advice for the folks in the bigger companies, but too many folks jump to the conclusion of we need a gaming strategy. While that might eventually be the conclusion that you end up with, you don't want to start with that. Because if you're going to your executives, if you're going to the CFO saying, we need a gaming strategy and I need $50 million to do X, Y, and Z, more than likely, it's going to be more than likely that the CFO has no past experience with gaming, doesn't understand the economics.
True.
It's going to be uncharted territory. So they're going to go, yeah, we're not going to give you any money for that because we have no idea to understand and measure ROI for what you're about to do and for the money that you're asking for. But if you start with the business objectives and work your way backwards and say, we're trying to gain and reach net new customers. We want to penetrate a net new audience. We're weak on, let's say, Gen Z. We have no brand awareness. We need to get these people into our environment. Okay, great. That's the objective. Where are they? Well, they play games more than they do anything. Gen Z and Gen Alpha spend three times the amount of time in video games than they spend on all social media channels combined. Okay, so that's the touch point where they are.
Crazy.
Well, then how do we get there? And that you work your way upstream. And then again, the conclusion might be, well, we need a gaming strategy, but that wasn't the starting point. You have to start at the end with where do we want to end up and what do we want to achieve? And I think that approach serves the big guys as well as it serves the small guys, because you have to start with who are we as a business and what do we want to do and work from there.
It's more authentic, man. That's why.
That's it.
That's funny because as I've built out different companies, the moment somebody approaches us and be like, when we're pitching different ideas of companies, of building companies, the moment somebody says, okay, how much money is this going to make us? I'm like, you're starting you started in the wrong spot because that's not what's going to happen. So you hit it right on the head there. You mentioned games that never finish, right? Things that it feels like they're always. I felt like when I was reading that, I was thinking about Fortnite. Never finishes.
Yep, it's never done.
It's designed that way so I can come back every freaking day. I hate it.
You hate it, but you love it.
I hate it, I love it. It's terrible. At what point when you're building out, you've gotten through the part of who are we, how are we going to show up? Okay, let's create a gaming strategy. At what point should we start thinking of bringing in an actual gaming strategist, somebody who starts building the games and creates this process of routines? Because I'm assuming that the New York Times has a gaming team, right?
Yep.
So talk to me about that.
Day one. That's my honest recommendation. Day one.
Dude, like a social media strategist like that?
Yep. And the nuance that I would offer is you don't have to have a full-fledged team from day one. Now the New York Times has close to 100 people in their games team making games. You don't have to start there. But what they started with was first, okay, crosswords. They did that with a couple of people that they had internally. They proved it out. So they treated that as the POC. And then they hired Jonathan Knight, who used to head up mobile. He's been in mobile gaming his whole career, but he used to head up mobile at Zynga.
Oh, wow.
They went out.
Dude,
they went out.
I remember that.
Jonathan Knight, and Jonathan's awesome. But they went out, and that's what you're alluding to. That's their version of a gaming strategist, someone that's built games from the ground up, built those teams, managed live games, live environments. He's gone through all the different motions. He understands user acquisition, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he was then their person to go, we have the baseline. We want to go into gaming. We want to build this out. Here's the vision, of what we high level want to do. You take it and you make it your own and you build it out. And I think that's if you start and you build a first game, you want to build a first experience, don't acquire a full-fledged studio right away. Don't hire a full team internally. Do it with a partner first. Or if you're doing something really small scale that you can do internally to prove out the economics, to prove out that your thesis of we can leverage this to benefit our business is right, and then scale up from there. Don't make the mistake of going, we're going to spend $100 million and we're going to go from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds and just be done with them. You're just gonna burn money, and it's not going to work.
Yeah, there's no long-term
Um,
plan. How do you
it is.
maintain
It
that
has to
plan?
be exactly. And to your
Yeah.
point, kind of like how you have a social media strategist, that's how you should treat it. You have to treat it not in that campaign type mindset that marketing teams are often in, where we do like, oh, we had an integration in League of Legends, or we did, last week we did the thing in Fortnite. Maybe next year we'll do a Fortnite thing again. Gaming, and this is where
Okay.
Raja, the CMO at MasterCard, what he said to me really stuck with me, because how they treat gaming internally, he said it's an always on initiative. It's 24/7, 365 days a year. It's an
That's
always
funny.
on thing for us. And that's how MasterCard looks at it. And now when you look at some of the organizational structures, I know we just talked about the New York Times, but take Gucci, for example. In their marketing team, they have a head of and then a dedicated like team varying in size, one for Instagram, one for Facebook, one for TikTok, whatever other social channel then they're on. And then they have a person in the team that's in charge of Roblox, a Fortnite, and the other couple of games where they're constantly doing something. And it's
That's crazy.
dedicated people with dedicated budget, with dedicated initiatives and a long-term plan, and they're executing against it. And I think that's what you want to get to. So, but number one advice, like bring someone in, either if it's you're partnering with someone or an organization externally,
Mhm.
or you're hiring that one person if you know we're going to make that commitment, but bring someone in that understands gaming, that's been in that space before, that also understands brands and can bridge to your world, but work with someone and partner with someone who has done this type of work before. It's going to save you a ton of time, ton of money, and a ton of headache.
You know what I hear all the time? I hear, "Oh, we need to gamify this. Oh, what we need to add gamification." But
Yep.
after reading your book, I don't think anybody understands what it means.
And it's so sad because, Yukai Chao, he wrote this book. And in my opinion, that's the seminal piece on gamification. The book is called Actionable Gamification. Like I cited it in my book. He wrote this thing like 15 years ago, and it's actually really good. But then it's one of those gamification alongside personalization, in my opinion, those are the two most abused terms in the business world, the most widely misunderstood and abused terms. Because it's exactly to what you said. People will go, we need to gamify X, Y, and Z. And then you end up with, when Robinhood launched and you bought your first stock on Robinhood,
Yep.
that's the confetti on the screen example. And it's that you're just taking an isolated feature or an isolated mechanic from a video game, and you're
Mm.
throwing that into your experience, whatever your experience is, and you go, check, we did the gamification thing.
We're
I
done.
think we're
We're
done here.
done.
We're done. And
That's
then you're
terrible.
like, well, the results aren't there. Gamification doesn't work. And we
That's
went through that phase. That was the phase. Like 5-6 years ago, people were like, gamification doesn't work. It's
funny.
like, well, most companies don't even do it right. One of the best examples right now of like actual gamification, but like to the T, is Duolingo. If
Oh,
you if you
they're
use
amazing.
Duolingo 4 years
Amazing.
ago, 5 years ago, like the base core Duolingo that everyone knows for learning languages, it felt like a learning app. It
Yep.
was an app that was, you could tell like, okay, I'm learning. It's educational content I'm learning. If you go into the Duolingo app now, that doesn't feel like learning. That doesn't feel like educational content. That is literally a mobile game that you're playing. And what you happen to be playing is learning languages. So, and they actually took it a step further. A few weeks ago, they acquired a studio in the UK called, I think Next Beat, and they have a music game called Next Star or Next Beat Star or something like that. So
Mhm.
they're taking that existing game that this team built, and they brought the whole team over. They bought the whole company. And the next phase of growth for Duolingo is we're going to teach people, basically let them learn other things. So we started with languages. Next up, chess. Next up, music. And now when you learn music, you take musical classes, you learn different instruments. via Duolingo, you're doing that in that video game. So now they've gone through the motions with the language learning. That's effectively a full-fledged mobile game now. And with music, because they know the process now, they're starting at the end. They just go, okay, game, and we're going to plug our learning mechanics into that. But we already have the game fully built out. So the Duolingo right now is the company. If you talk about or ask me about who does gamification really well,
Yeah,
it's absolutely that company.
that makes sense, man. They are everyone loves them, even on social. They've gotten
Yep.
so popular on social because
Yep.
they're hitting all those marks really high.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So now let's go pivot to smaller again.
Hmm.
Because if I'm trying to gamify process, like truly gamify it, just something simple. And I want to hire somebody
Hmm.
and they're going to be in charge of creating or helping me show up authentically in whatever game I create. Where do I start with hiring somebody like that? Where do I go? What do I look for? Because you mentioned it a
Yeah.
little bit. Can you expand on that?
Yeah. I think who you would look for is definitely someone that has done user experience design in gaming, not UI
Mm,
design, not interface design, but user experience design, and actual game design. So the people that really think about what is the core loop of a game, what is the journey that we're sending people on in whichever environment that
mm,
we're creating, because that's the fundamental question. That's what the loop is. It's the journey that you're sending players on, and that starts with the very first moment someone opens your game and the onboarding of that person into that experience begins. So that's the type of profile that you'd want to look for. Game designer slash UX game designer. That's going to be the best person. Second best, I would maybe look at product managers or just overall the game lead, the person that had the holistic overview of whichever game you were creating.
got it.
Now, where do you find these people? What's interesting is, just a side note, I think it was a few months ago. Um, it was Indeed and Monster. Forget
Mhm.
some of the recruiting sites. They were reporting that open jobs in non-gaming, so in traditional industries, but open jobs that were specifically looking for people with a game design or gaming background were up like 30-40%, way more than job
Wow.
growth within the gaming industry, because people are starting to see that these types of profiles and this type of experience design and bringing gaming over into other companies is really important. So it's really interesting when you look at those jobs and the job growth there in the job market.
I wonder if it's
um,
because of you know how AI is making it so easy to vibe code so we can vibe. Um, I wonder if that has to be dude, I can build out something on Claude, right?
mhm.
But I don't know how to really take it all the way. I'm missing like the last 10%.
Yeah.
So I wonder if
Yeah.
it's like, I got a coder, great, I've done it, but what am I missing as this game, the journey? Like I
Yeah.
need somebody to look at it. So
Yeah, I
that's
think
crazy.
absolutely. I think that's definitely a part of it. Absolutely. And then just, seeing companies are waking up to and they're seeing the success that others are having. Like Peloton is a really good example. And
Sure.
now when you look at Strava and Strava's app, because that's kind of like a pretty much a direct competitor to Peloton, and now you open the Strava app, that's starting to feel like you're actually playing a game. But Peloton was first. So I think as you're seeing this more and more and more, and I think it's companies waking up to the fact that this type of thinking is really important and that you need a special skill set to be able to do that and to do it well. Now, where do you find these people? That's the next question. I mean, obviously, honestly, LinkedIn stalking is great, like stalking in the friendly sense. Just look at if you're a small company, a really small company or a small business, gaming studios are everywhere. And there's gaming studios in every single town. So like look at LinkedIn, look at the companies in your community or that are close, and look for the local gaming studio that's there and reach out
Mm,
to them and have a conversation with them. And I think start there. That's a really good place. If you want to meet these people live, going to different events, GDC in San Francisco is the biggest one. The Game Developer Conference. It's now being called. They're rebranding next year. The Games Developer, the Gaming Festival, or something like that. But that's really where a lot of folks, especially in the US, really come together. So you could just meet a lot of people in real life very, very
yeah,
easily.
yeah.
But those would be two really, really good hunting grounds. And then honestly, um, just looking at different social media accounts, Substack, who are the people that are writing about this type of stuff, who are thinking along these lines, and just reaching out to them and asking if they want to have a conversation. I had a person reach out to me on LinkedIn. She listened to a webinar that I gave for NASDAQ, and she messaged me on LinkedIn and said, I have a consulting company. It's me and two other people. And I've been thinking about gaming, and I tossed the idea out 3 years ago. But having listened to your webinar and having read your book, it's made me rethink this approach. And can we take 30 minutes? Oh, thank you.
Yeah, dude.
She's like, can we take 30 minutes to just talk high level through some ideas and some principles? And I was more than happy to get on a call with her. So I think if you're actively looking for this and you know roughly what to look for, you'll find people pretty quickly.
Thanks, man. That was good. I like that. Here's what I was thinking. I don't know at what point. By the way, I love your kids.
Thank you.
I don't know at what point in the book I thought it. You know what? It was probably when you were talking about. Was it Burberry? Did you bring up
Mhm.
Burberry in the book? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think it was that. Um, when you brought them up and you showcased and explained how they were putting in their products, I thought, you know, I think I got distracted with AI and I forgot how important gaming is to
Mhm.
humanity, where we're at, right, as a culture.
Yep.
And I think AI is obviously extremely important. But I think what brings it together is the participation that you talk about.
Yep.
It's like, wait a
Yep.
second, I'm going to be able to use AI in gaming. Gaming still
Mhm.
remains the same, if not even more important, because it creates a community, right?
Yep.
I belong, I participate, I feel happy, I get angry, I threw my controller through the wall, right? Or whatever. But the point is, like, gaming should be a massive part of a lot of businesses, and they just don't know. And you really put that into perspective for me even more. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Thanks for saying that. And it's, AI to me, yeah, it is probably one of the most defining technologies for sure of our time, but, you know, arguably one that we ever have seen as a species. However, it's a technology. It's also a means to an end. And if we're losing our humanity throughout all that, social connection, um, the shared experiences with other people, going through all the different emotions, like also the struggle is important. Being like you're playing a game and you get frustrated, you throw the controller, you're failing, and then you're coming back to it, it's like, I love it.
That's so
you
funny.
know it's the opposite of that is if you have an AI chatbot or an agent and they just give you everything that you want at all times, seamlessly, frictionless, on demand, in seconds. It doesn't matter what it is. You're just being spoon fed. It's actually a pretty sad life because that takes all the joy out of life. Because what makes where a lot of joy in life comes from is from working for stuff, and
Yeah.
it's hard. There is friction, and I think that's why. Again, back to how we started this conversation, games are so powerful because play is, yes, it's structured, but it is messy. It involves failure. It involves learning. It involves progression. It involves getting better. It involves, depending on what the environment is, collaborating with other people, depending on other people, coming together. There's all these stories of people have found their like life partner playing a game together in those different environments. So like the bonds that you're able to create in those worlds, in those moments of play, they're very real and they're very human. So my hope is
Mm.
that I agree with you. I think to me, gaming is the next social media. Gaming is it is the defining consumer medium of our time. We're gonna see experiences in 10 years or so, whatever time frame you want to, put to it, that are going to be video games, and we're not even going to call them video games. We're not going to label them as such, but they're going to be video games. We're going to be in those worlds. We're going to enjoy those experiences. There's going to be 15 other Duolingos that are going to be a game effectively. And we're learning, we're conversing, we're meeting people, we're doing transactions, we're banking, whatever it is. And to me, my hope is that AI gets used in those worlds to make those environments even more accessible, broadly applicable, more available to more people, and more people can create those worlds and come together, find each other in those universes, connect with each other in those universes, bond. And yeah, for brands and even smaller companies, like find way more effective ways to bond with your customers and with your audience, and create lasting relationships in a world that is pretty fleeting, where the battle for everyone's attention is brutal. So that's my hope, what AI hopefully does in the context of gaming.
Yeah, I think it will. I think you're right. Like, I think, like, obviously Ready Player One, because we've all been
Mhm.
exposed to it in movies, right? But that
Yep.
that future would be kind of cool, man. I'm in.
Yep.
I'd be like, I'll
Yep.
play
I'd sign up
you.
for
Maybe.
that.
Wait, what's your favorite video game if you play video games or light
Ooh, all time.
all time? And then what are you playing right now?
Okay. So what am I playing right now? I already said I have two small kids. So what I'm mostly playing is either Astrobot on my PlayStation,
Oh, cool.
or I play Super Mario World on the Switch with my little one. Favorite
Nice.
game all time. So I'm a huge sucker for all the sports franchises that EA did. So I grew up playing hockey. So
Oh,
NHL, FIFA,
oh,
those
nice.
two. Outside of that, Ghost of Tsushima is like hands down my
Oh,
favorite RPG.
wow. Nice. You came from left field. I didn't expect that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Good.
awesome.
That's so cool, dude. All right. Another question. Uh, After reading your book, I thought when I feel when I was thinking about gaming, if I narrowed it down to one word for me, right?
Mhm.
I was trying to figure out what would be that one word for me, and I thought for me it was always it gave me the challenge that I needed.
Mhm.
Right? It kept me going. But I don't know that it was the right word, it's just what I was thinking, right?
Mhm.
Because I
Mhm.
always feel like, "Man, I'm not good enough. I'm never good enough, Bastian. I suck at
Yeah.
this. I suck at it. It's terrible." And then
Same.
when I think I'm good, tomorrow I suck. Even worse. It's terrible. But for you, I wrote down, what's the one word that makes gaming magical?
Mm. Oh, that is a great question. Um,
It's a
that's
hard
a
one, dude.
great that's a great question. I think I would probably say venturing, because it's like it's the
Oh,
exploration nature for me. It's going
yeah.
into these worlds, you're going onto these journeys, you kind of know where you're going, but it's also there's a lot that's going to reveal itself along the way. And I think that to me it's you're exploring a world, you're venturing.
Dude, that's good. I like that. I would agree with you now. Forget my
Thank you.
answer. Yours is amazing. I'm gonna steal your answer, Bastian.
That's okay. You have my permission.
Thanks for doing this, man.
Thank you,
This
Tristan, for
was
having me.
absolutely great. Everyone, please pick up the book, Press Play by Bastian Bergmann. It's phenomenal. You'll go back to it. The one thing you will get from it, hands down, your mind will open up to a lot of things you didn't know you're supposed to be looking at for your businesses, your growth, the people that you work with. You really put this at the center of what I think I should be shooting for. Because the whole time, Bastian, we grew through social. We've done amazing on social, and I think it's amazing. I think it's great. But I think I need to have a gaming strategy now thanks to you. So, I appreciate that.
Awesome. Thanks, Tristan.
Thanks for doing this.